This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. For roll call, Councillor Ham has sent her regrets. We'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Oslich, that Council adopts the agenda for the meeting of September 17th, 2022 as presented.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, delegations and public meetings. And we do have a committee of adjustment this evening. So I guess I'm asked for the resolution, please.
This is moved by Councillor Charlton and seconded by Councillor Oslich, that Council recess at 7:01 p.m. to commence a committee of adjustment hearing to consider the application for extension/alteration to a legal non-conforming use at property known municipally as 44 Beach Street West, Elmer.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Elmer is convened to consider application A02-22. Additional information relating to the applications is available for inspection between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at Aylmer Town Hall. Signed written submissions shall be accepted by the clerk prior to or during the hearing, and such submission shall be available for inspection by any interested party. In addition, if a party who is notified does not attend the hearing, the committee can proceed and the party is not entitled to any further notice of hearings. Submission or request for notice can be sent to clerks@town.elmer.on.ca. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing, and those who have filed a written request with the Secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, the clerk. Application A5-22 is made by Mr. Peter and Mrs. Nancy Klassen for extension alteration to a legal non-conforming use 44 Beach Street West. The applicants are requesting to construct a new semi-detached dwelling where in an area zoned light industrial M1 in the Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 57-99. The M1 zone does not permit the establishment of new residential uses. To permit the proposed new semi-detached dwelling, approval is required under the Planning Act to allow the extension alteration of the building or structure. If the use that was made of the building or structure on the day the bylaw was passed continued until the date of the application to the committee. Would the Manager of Planning and Development please present your report?
Okay.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, thank you, Your Worship. What you have before you tonight is an application for an extension alteration to a legal non-conforming use at 44 Beach Street West. The owners are requesting to construct a new semi-detached dwelling with attached garage per dwelling unit on the lands to replace the former semi-detached dwelling on the property. There was a legally established semi-detached dwelling on the property prior to the passing of the zoning bylaw that was destroyed due to fire in August of 2021. In order to permit the proposed new semi-detached dwelling, approval is required under the Planning Act to allow the extension alteration of the building or structure if the use that was made of the building or structure on the day the bylaw was passed continued until the date of the application to the committee. Within my report, I provide you with background information on the application, as well as Figure 1 shows the location of the lands on the south side of Beach Street, just west of the intersection of John Street North and Beach Street West. Adjacent land uses are residential, railway corridor to the south, and the Elgin Innovation Center to the north. Figure 2 also shows the proposed semi-detached dwelling to replace the former dwelling that was on the property. It's important to note that the owner's applicants are proposing for the existing lot of record, for the proposed semi-detached dwelling, that the dwelling will have a minimum front yard of 7.46 meters, minimum interior side yard of 1.96 meters, a minimum rear yard depth of 9 meters, maximum lot coverage of 27%, minimum landscaped open space exceeding 30%, and will not exceed the maximum height of 8.5 meters. In terms of the Town of Elmer official plan, I reviewed the policies that apply in terms of non-conforming use, and I can comment that this property does conform, with the policies of the official plan. These lands have been legally used for residential use for what I have found to be about 50 to 60 years at least. The 2-unit dwelling on the property has existed for well over 20 years, and it complied with the previous zoning on the lands prior to the approval of the current bylaw that's in effect. Though it may be beneficial for such uses to cease to exist in the long run and be replaced by uses which are permitted, such action may be unnecessary hardship to an owner, which is the case here. If it hadn't been for the fire that destroyed the dwelling in August of 2021, the dwelling would still be standing today. As a general guide within our official plan to assist administration, where a non-conforming use ceases to exist for a continuous period of 1 year, it shall deem to have lost its status as a non-conforming use. As I mentioned, the home was destroyed in August of 2021. The owners have demonstrated by applying for this variance on August 4th, 2022, their desire to continue the 2-dwelling unit use on the lands. The application was circulated internally and to the applicable commenting agencies. I did receive comments from the town's director of operations regarding servicing, drainage, and entrances. A new entrance will be required, and that would need to be issued from the County of Elgin. County of Elgin was circulated this application, and there was no comment received from them. The owners have been made aware of this, as well as regarding servicing and drainage. These matters will be addressed during the building permit application process. No other concerns were, comments of concerns were received internally. At the time of submission of this report, I did receive comments in favor of this application. They were received from Michael Steckel, neighboring property owner at 50 Beach Street West. At the time of submission of this application or this report, I did not receive any comments from agencies. However, as of yesterday afternoon, I did receive comments from CN. They would have been circulated as a property owner within 60 meters of the subject lands. They have provided town staff, and as well it's been provided to council, recommendations for this approval. And I do want to stress that these are recommendations. CN is a commenting agency. They do not provide the approval on this minor variance or on this building permit application. This variance is, the approval sits with the Committee of Adjustment. So it's important to note, and I will just go over these comments very briefly. They've commented that they're requesting a minimum of 30-meter setback from the building to the right-of-way, and they're also requesting a safety burn. I can comment, however, that there is an intervening landowner between this property and the actual lands owned by CN. There's a strip of land in behind, and it's been confirmed that those lands were part of the Elmer train station at one point. It was kind of a siding that kind of came in behind. That does provide a bit more buffer in terms of, from the back wall of this proposed dwelling to where the CN lands would be. I've measured it out based on the width of that property as well as the rear yard setback that's being proposed, and the property owners are proposing a setback of 26 meters. So a deficiency of 4 meters is not bad, in my opinion. It's still meeting the intention of what CN is requesting, which is to provide a buffer. And their concerns mostly are focused on noise and vibration. The second comment they request is that the owners shall install and maintain a chain link fence of a minimum of 1.83 meters in height along the mutual property line. In discussions with the property owners today, they have confirmed that there is a fence along the rear lot line, as well as a fence along the west lot line, and there's a partial fence along the east lot line. It is a wooden fence. It's not chain link, however, there is a fence there. As well, within the comments, they've requested that there be specific clause inserted into all development agreements, offers to purchase and sale, or in any lease agreements for the dwelling units. This is a matter that is not to be dealt with by this committee. Those type of requests are for if the property was to be sold, for the property owner, should they enter into any lease agreements with the dwelling units. So it really doesn't involve this committee. And the last set of comments they made was in regards to building design and construction. And I can note, however, that these comments have been circulated over to our chief building official. Our chief building official is away on vacation. However, I can comment that through the building permit application process, the chief building official will ensure that this proposed structure, should this committee grant this approval, will ensure that this structure complies with the Ontario Building Code and its requirements. So in my opinion, I have very little concern on these comments that we've received from CN on this application. Moving on, in terms of analysis, I reviewed the Ontario Planning Act in regards to particular section 45.2. And in my opinion, this application complies with the Ontario Planning Act in terms of section 45.2. Moving on to official plan evaluation criteria, we have several policies within our plan. We have considerations for applications for enlargements or extensions of non-conforming uses. We have a set of criteria that the committee would need to consider before they could provide a decision on an application. That criteria being that the proposed extension or enlargement of the established use shall not unduly aggravate the situation created by the existence of the use, especially in regards to the official plan policies and the zoning bylaw regulations. My comment on that is the proposed semi-detached dwelling will not aggravate the situation caused by the existence of the use, especially in regards to the policies and regulations. The proposed development does comply with the residential type 2 zone, which would normally be the type of zoning that we would see for a semi-detached use. The second set of criteria, the proposed extension or enlargement shall be minor in nature. The building envelope of the proposed semi-detached dwelling is 35 square meters, or what is known as 376.74 square feet larger than the original semi-detached dwelling. However, the enlargement is minor in nature. The third set of criteria, that the application, which would affect the boundaries of the different land use designations on the land use plan, will only be processed under these policies. There is no, this variance doesn't impact any kind of boundary areas on the property in terms of the land use designation. Fourth criteria, the characteristics of the existing use and the proposed extension or enlargement shall be examined with regard to noise, vibration, fumes, smoke, dust, odors, lighting, and traffic generating capacity. I have no concerns with the existing use as well as the proposed enlargement. And again, going back to the comments from CN, these two uses, that being a dwelling on this property as well as the CN rail corridor, they've coexisted for a significant period of time. This is not a new, a brand new lot with a brand new home being constructed. So the impacts that have been experienced on this property are well known, and as well as well known with the adjacent property owners as well. The next set of criteria, number 5, that the neighboring uses will be protected where necessary by the provision of areas for landscaping, buffering, or screening, appropriate setbacks for buildings and structures. Again, no concerns on this as well. There is fencing in place on this property. Next set of criteria, that traffic and parking conditions in the vicinity will not be adversely affected by the application. And I can comment that there is no concerns regarding parking. There is sufficient parking on the property, which also leads into my last criteria regarding sufficient off-street parking on this property. The next one is regarding being able to be capable to be connected to the appropriate municipal services. The owners will be required to provide separate water and sanitary sewer connections at the building permit stage. As I mentioned, road occupancy permit from Elgin County is required. Lastly, a lot grading plan will be required at the building permit stage to satisfy drainage requirements that were identified by the operations department. Recommendation is that the planning staff's opinion that the proposed application for an extension alteration to a legal nonconforming use is desirable for the appropriate development and use of the lands and meets the intent and purpose of the official plan policies and zoning bylaw regulations, and recommend that the request for the proposed application to a legal nonconforming use, file A05-22, be approved, subject to no concerns being raised through any oral and written submissions being received since the writing of this report and at the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Is the applicant or agent present? Could the clerk confirm whether or not any members of the public wish to speak to the application?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, there were none.
And have you received any communications related to this application?
Through you, Madam Chair, all of the communications that were received related to this application were just summarized by the planner.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Heather, 2 questions. Are we confident that the August 21st fire was the actual date? It just seems to be longer.
I received the fire report from the chief
Okay.
from the town. Yeah,
All right.
that had that date stamped right on the fire report.
Okay, thank you for that. And secondly, why is this an amendment to non-conforming use rather than a minor variance? Can you describe the difference in
Sure.
the process?
Absolutely. So a minor variance would allow for a variance to, for instance, a setback that would, for a use that would be legal in the zoning bylaw. So the difference is a minor variance is it's providing relief for a use or a building that's legal in the zoning bylaw, whereas this application is providing an alteration or an extension for a use that's currently not classified as legal in our zoning bylaw. However, it legally non-conforms to our zoning bylaw because it did at one point legally conform to the zoning bylaw at the time at which it was constructed.
Okay, so we would probably expect to see more of this type of application as we move forward?
Well, it depends. It's hard for me to say. I've been taking a look. I have been surveying, like kind of looking at all our official plan and zoning bylaw maps to look at where do we have areas of non-conforming. I will say that these lands, so there's a series of lots on the south side of Beach Street between Elm and John Street North that are all legal non-conforming uses. And we do have a few other little pockets of areas in the town that are also legal non-conforming use as well. Overall, we don't have a lot of these properties.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions? Josh, I'll turn it over to you then for the resolution.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, this is moved by Member Oslich, seconded by Member Barber, that the Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Elmer receives Report Planning 1222, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Extension and Alteration to a Legal Non-Conforming Use, File A0522, respecting property known municipally as 44 Beach Street West, and that the Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Elmer grants the application for extension and alteration to a non-conforming use for the property known municipally as 44 Beach Street West, subject to the condition that the proposed development is substantially in accordance with application for extension and alteration to a legal non-conforming use in the A0522 drawing and as included in Report Planning 1222.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the next resolution, please, Josh.
This is moved by Member Barber, seconded by Member Chapman, that the Committee of Adjustment hearing is adjourned at 7:19 p.m.
All those in favor? And that's carried. And our next resolution, please.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Charlton, that Council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of Council held on August 10th, 2022.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried.
This is moved by Councillor Barber, seconded by Councillor Oslich, that Council receives the following minutes. Meeting of Elmer Cemetery Board held on July the 26th, 2022.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
This is moved by Councillor Barber, seconded by Councillor Oslich, that items 7.1 to 7.3 of the September 7th, 2022 consent agenda be received for information with actions to be taken as noted.
Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? Go ahead, Councillor Oslach.
Consent agenda 7.1, EPCOR, Natural Gas Limited. I see our gas as of January the 1st decreases to 7.56 per year. That's good news.
Any further comments concerning the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move to action items. Report Clerk 42-22.
This is moved by Councillor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Barber, that report Clerk 4222 entitled Facilities Condition Assessment, Town of Elmer Fire Hall and Police Station be received for information. And further, that Council awards the Fire Hall Condition Assessment Project to IRC Building Sciences Group in the amount of $7,200. And that Council awards the Police Station Condition Assessment Project to IRC Building Sciences Group in the amount of $6,100. And further, that Council directs staff to take the necessary actions to execute the vendor agreement with IRC Building Services Group for the provision of the previously mentioned deliverables.
Did you have anything further, Josh, to add to this for the council?
Certainly,
Like an overview?
Sure. Through your worship, just a brief overview. So facilities condition assessment information is important just to ensure prioritized, accurate, and effective capital planning for municipal facilities. So it's been our practice to do a facility condition assessment on every municipal building once every 10 years. And really what that does is it eliminates the guesswork from the town's facility management strategy. So provides a roadmap to help guide council and staff on matters that have to do with preventative maintenance and then future capital projects. So ultimately, the benefit of this is that it extends asset life cycles by favoring a proactive approach to maintenance. And really the key objective of this exercise that we do every decade is cost savings and being able to justify our expenditures on facilities. Just moving down the list here. So staff solicited proposals from qualified vendors to undertake this standard assessment on the fire hall and police station. Again, the data that we're working with right now is about 10 years old, so we were due. And the scope of work that was included includes but isn't limited to a review of visible exterior finishes. So this is waterproofing, the roof, exterior walls, sealants, vents, windows, doors, caulking. And then we also move into some of the more expensive systems such as mechanical, electrical, et cetera. And finally, they also will consider fire and life safety in the building. So the quotes that we received were significantly under budget, being $7,200 for the fire hall and $6,100 for the police station. I should note that we had budgeted $30,000 for this year for these projects. I think that we realized some efficiencies sort of putting them out at the same time and being able to work with the same vendor, but we were also, I think we benefited from some of the slowing of the economy as it relates to building and engineering services in that space. So based on the three quotations that we'd received, we're recommending that council proceeds with awarding the work to IRC Building Services Group of London, Ontario, and this will be to undertake two separate facility condition assessment projects. This firm is experienced in undertaking similar projects in municipal and other public settings, and their pricing and scope of fees are all inclusive. So that was one of the things that really stuck out about this, is that by having their fees be all inclusive, it avoids us from sort of any unnecessary overruns that, such as mileage or extra costs for specialized testing equipment. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Through your worship to Josh, so we're doing these two buildings this year. Is there anything on the slate then for the next year and the year after?
Yes, through your worship. So we'll have pretty well the exact same report coming to council in the beginning of next term to do the balance of our municipal facilities. The last comprehensive facility condition assessment that was undertaken was in 2012. So this is sort of the last year of it, and then we'll do another one for 2023 to 2033.
Go ahead, Counselor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. To Josh, just to make sure we're on the same page, these are surveys to indicate the structural integrities of the buildings and that they can function properly, not to enhance them in any way, shape, or form. Is that basically correct?
Yes, through your worship, that's exactly correct, Councillor Barber. It's just the current building as is.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. New business and matters of urgency. Okay. Reading of bylaws, the resolution for 3 readings, please.
This is moved by Councillor Oslich and seconded by Councillor Barber, that council gives 3 readings to the following bylaw, and that's bylaw 3122, being a bylaw to amend the bylaw 6821, which is a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the corporation of the town of Elmer.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Inquiries by members? Okay, seeing none. Statements and committee reports. Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. The Elmer Area Secondary Water Board met today for the last time in this term of council, pending a call of the chair. I'd like to thank the members that have sat on that committee for a number of years, including Max Moore, Township of Malahide, 12 years, 54 years on council. Kind of impressive. But anyway, it's been a well-functioning committee, and the community has been well-served by those members. Secondly, water consumption in the first and second quarters was down marginally, about 2%, but it has not affected the budget forecast of the system for the balance of the year. And thirdly, there weren't any issues of conformity or non-compliance. The water is still safe to drink.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Barber. Are there any further statements or committee reports this evening? Okay. There is no report of the mayor. I highly doubt if there's a notice of motion. We have no meeting closed to the public this evening, so adjournment.
This is moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Charlton, that council do now adjourn at 7:27 p.m.
And all those in favor? And that's carried, and thank you very much. Have a great evening.